right, good evening. We are here at the board workshop for the United ISD Board of Trustees. Present is Mr. Ricardo Molina
Ricardo Molina Sr.
Juan Roberto Ramírez. Ricardo Rodríguez.
and Javier Montemayor. Hereby call this meeting of the United Independent School District to order. Let the record show that a quorum of board members is present and that this meeting has been duly called and that notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. Item number 3, workshop presentation discussion regarding the 2013 bond program update. Mr. Rangel.
Yes, good evening, members of the board, Superintendent Gonzalez, members of the audience. So for this bond workshop, really the administration just wanted to visit with the board, have some dialogue, give you an update report as to kind of like a snapshot as to where we are on the bond program, go over some of the projects that are still ongoing, a timeline as to when everything will be completed, and then what are the remaining projects to be started, and then we can have some dialogue as to what's the direction and get some thoughts from the board. So I'll go ahead and start this. So just to refresh everybody's memory for the $408 million bond program in 2013, which included all our new schools, 12 new schools, and the replacement of 2 elementary schools, safety, security, technology, additions, renovations throughout the district. So right now, just regarding new campuses. So that's where we are currently stand at this time, where we have completed, as you know, the 4 ninth grade campuses very successfully. It's been great for the instructional program as well as relief for our high schools. 1 middle school, Raul Perales Middle School, was completed. Also excellent, very great remarks and comments from our community, our parents. We are under construction, as you see there on items 6 and 7, are the 2 remaining middle schools. Ricardo Molina Middle School to be opened next August 2022, and Juan Roberto Ramirez Middle School also already started a couple of months ago and to be opened the following year, August 2023. Of course, our construction project completed those 5 elementary schools, Veterans Memorial, San Isidro, Freedom Elementary, Salinas Elementary, Roberto Santos Elementary School just recently opened to be dedicated this Friday. So Salinas Elementary School that is listed here was the 5th elementary school that was going to be built actually to be at the Cuatro Vientos Sur subdivision for enrollment projections that we had back in 2012, 2013. As the board approved with recommendations from the community that would be open as Salinas Elementary School until it was decided further later on as to what would be the direction of the board. Due to the enrollment projections that really required, that school actually has been satisfying all those attendance boundaries. And then the total expenditure that you see there is about $320 million, $215,000. Now, what we wanted to clarify, those expenditures include the projected expenses in order to open the 2 schools that are under construction, Ricardo Molina Middle School, Juan Roberto Ramirez Middle School. So we want to give you a complete picture as to what are the funds that have been spent and will be spent to open all of these campuses successfully. For example, the furniture and equipment that is still pending to be delivered and to be purchased for both middle schools, technology, the construction of Vaquero Boulevard, utilities, everything that we project that will be needed, it's incorporated in this number.
Even the swimming pool.
No.
Are all the elementaries the same price and all the middle schools the same price?
No, Mr. Molina, I think through the years as we went ahead and approved the guaranteed maximum price, and we had factors of inflation.
No, because I heard the 2 last middle schools were going to cost a lot more with all the material that
Absolutely,
went up.
yes.
I was just wondering.
That is correct, Mr. Molina. That's why we brought to the board back in June the last middle school, Juan Roberto Ramirez Middle School, so we can put a freeze and go ahead and tie down all those prices before there were more escalation of
I
construction
remember
costs.
night, about a year ago, Mr. Landecker called me, and he said, you know, I'd like to advise you that if you don't buy today, whenever you want to buy, it's going to cost 10 times what the amount is. So I called Mr. Santos, and Mr. Santos said, okay, I'll consider that. But now, last time I talked to him, he said, the prices went out of control, the material and everything's so expensive that it's incredible, I don't know how we're gonna match the price that we told you we're gonna charge. It's gonna be very hard for us to make any money. And I said, well, that's where you have the maximum, the contract,
The guaranteed price.
But he said, it's a,
Yes.
and
No,
I think Mr. Ramirez is one of the, he told me that one of the, I think 2 schools were gonna cost a lot of money because they were gonna start pretty soon.
That is correct, Mr. Molina, and that's why, fortunately, we're able to get the third middle school already guaranteed price and at this current construction cost.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Moving on to just give you a snapshot as to the 3 ongoing projects where we are. Of course, the replacement of Salinas Elementary School. The only item that we completed or we're under construction or demolition at this time, it's the first phase, which is the demolition of the entire former Salinas Elementary School, as we decided back 2 years ago that it was in the best interest of the district to go ahead and demolish it. We're at about 85% complete on that. Funds that have been spent and encumbered for that particular project is $1,696,000 as far as the demolition. Now, the remainder is still there that we'll discuss in a minute. Ricardo Molina Middle School, again, that's 77% complete. It's to, like I mentioned earlier, to be completed next year, February 2022.
You can see the difference between
Right,
my
between
school and Mr.
Molina and Ramirez.
The price, what's about 3 million?
That's correct.
or
Yes, of course.
3.5 million, something like that?
Yeah, Molina Middle School, which was really awarded back in 2019, November 2019. We were able to get at that cost. And just from then to now, it escalated. But also to keep in mind that Roberto Ramirez Middle School, when we awarded it, that includes the construction of Vaquero Boulevard. At the other school, Ricardo Molina Middle School, the roads were already built. Everything was shovel-ready. On Vaquero Boulevard, on this Roberto Ramirez Middle School, we have to bring utilities to the property, build the road, plus all the inflationary factors that affected it.
What do you estimate is that cost for Kettle Boulevard?
We're talking about probably $1,200,000 in that neighborhood. But that includes utilities and everything that has to be built. So now on this price that we've worked with the finance department of $27,431,000 projected cost for Juan Roberto Ramirez Middle School, we did include all those factors that are still remaining to be purchased, for example, furniture, equipment, that we're going to order a year and a half, 2 years from now. So we included an inflation factor for all those components, technology, everything else. So to the best of our ability, we're trying to project everything to give you a better, good snapshot as to what will actually be spent by the time we complete all the 2 middle schools.
What was the guaranteed price on Roberto Ramirez?
The guaranteed price, just the construction part of it, I would have to get that number later from the construction report,
It's okay,
but
24 million?
around 24 million.
So including the road and the utilities, another 1.2, so you're talking about, so we're still about 2 million.
Yeah, well, furniture and equipment is probably going to be about 1.8 to 2 million, technology, everything else.
That's not part of the guaranteed.
That's, no, sir. So it's only the infrastructure is included. We have to purchase a lot of other furniture, equipment.
It's okay. 24 million, that's fine.
Yeah. Correct, yes, Mr. Montaño, 24,087,992. And there is an allowance there within that GMP for the sports football field, landscape, irrigation, fencing. There is some technology infrastructure, just the cabling. And then we have the fire protection storage tank. Any other questions, comments?
None on this.
All right, so now we move to other projects that have been completed, just to give you an updated report. These were very critical projects, actually. The safety and security were considered by the Blue Ribbon Committee at the time as the #1 priority. The security stations at each one or all our campuses. So all that, the technology for instructional programs and the additions and renovations throughout the district. Those are the $65 million that have been spent and completed, projects all finished. They're still the only one that's remaining within this amount that it's already included in this number, but hasn't been completed, is the technology infrastructure. We're on the second phase because of the E-rate matching funds. We have to wait until that is available, but that money is allocated here. I wanted to mention that before Mr. Perez tells me that don't forget about this important project because of the E-rate matching, it's very valuable. So that brings us to this next slide where what are our pending projects that really have not been started other than the demolition of Salinas, of course, is the Clark Elementary replacement and the actual replacement of Salinas once the demolition is 100% done. Going through the finance department, very detailed as to what are the funds that are remaining available today. It's $20,657,000. So those are the funds that are there already.
Absolutely no way you're going to build a Clark Elementary with $10 million or Salinas for $10 million. And it's just,
Will be a
just
challenge.
looking at the numbers that you have now, and Mr. Molina told you, has there been any funds? I know Clark and Salinas had a proposed cost when we went out for a bond. What were those?
Close to 13,
Like 14?
It was about 13, close to 14 million each.
I think it was like 14 million
14 million.
plus.
And then,
What happened to those monies? Were they allocated for some other projects or what? Where did those?
Yes, there were some projects that had to be allocated, like the middle schools that were mentioned by Mr. Molina, some cost increases that, we just had to be allocated for those projects. We're able to do a lot of these cost overruns on some projects by savings that we had accomplished on the first 7, 8 projects. We had several $1 million that were below cost in the 9th grade, some of the first elementary schools. And that allowed us to go ahead and offset some of those inflationary factors that we had to.
I think we saw that just in the middle schools, right, because there was 3 of them, that the time that we did Perales Middle, which was like 2015 to this 2021, that we got the price for Ramirez, there was like almost a 20% increase in the price.
But I thought those prices were locked.
No, they're guaranteed the.
Per project.
The project, right? And then Decker comes and says, okay, at this point, this is what it's gonna cost, and that's where he locks it in.
Yeah.
I'm
So
kinda
what's the, how much did they have pending at Clark? How much do they have pending at Salinas amount? I know there's 20,000 or 20, whatever, but what's
20
the
million.
division on both of them? Half or half?
It was 14 million for each campus, and so all that's left is 20. Should be 28, but all
Pero
that's
digo,
left is 20 million.
how much how much of that is for Salinas and how much?
Half and half.
It's probably half and
No,
half.
that's what I figured, that's what I was gonna
It's
ask.
probably the fair, equitable way.
So it's I'm kind of torn because it looks like we're taking from Peter to give to Paul. I understand these other costs over here, but when I have to go and look at the people from Salinas or the people from Clark, and they're going to say, hey, where's my campus that we voted on it for you? And I'll tell you right now, Clark came out very strong in favor of the bond. What am I supposed to tell them? Where are we going to get that money from? That's $6 million that goes to.
I think this is gonna probably go into a further study, like,
Yeah.
we know that in the 11 years or 12 or 10 years that we had the discussion back then, in 2012, our enrollment was growing. And it did peak about 2010, 2015 it peaked. Our enrollment was a lot higher. We have been seeing that our enrollment has been coming down, and really, the net increase in the 10-year period since we had the bond program, it's probably been like a growth of about maybe 200 kids net. That means we had a growth, and then it started coming down.
Those two
So-
campuses were not based on growth, though. Those two campuses were placed in the bond because of the age of those campuses. Those are the two oldest campuses in
Right,
the.
so what we see in, like, let's say the Clark area, right? What
Right.
we're seeing there is enrollment is still going down.
It's
Yeah, yes.
dismal, it's dismal.
Yes.
Really, it's really bad. And it's been
Yes.
like that since 2013.
So I think with Clark specifically, because you're not going to see any specific things on Clark right now, it's going to be a further discussion of what we do about enrollment in that whole Alexander feeder pattern.
We went to, I hosted a town hall meeting there because of the same issue. And I had to get my esquina, Ms. Rendon, to show up
Yeah.
because they were not happy.
No,
They
no.
were not happy at all about not having a campus. Salinas, I think, is in a better position because they were
already
able
have a
to
campus.
build.
Yeah,
a
with the
campus.
fifth elementary, we're able to really address the needs of that area.
I'm not in disagreement that Clark may not be a super priority as far as building a campus there. I'm not completely in disagreement, but I think we need to get our numbers
Right.
correct before
And
I
I think
go out there.
you've hit it on the nail, right? Like, here we are, so many years later, our cost overruns, inflation has eaten part of our bond money. And so if you think about these 10 million for each of these projects, right? We could see the projects that we've been hearing about that we might want to do instead of replacing Salinas Elementary. And then Clark Elementary, we may need to do a further study of enrollment in that area. We at one point had talked about a smaller prototype for maybe that school. I'm
We
not
have-
saying that's
yeah.
something that we,
Right.
will it be 10
Well-
million?
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but if
No.
you look at Amparo, if you look at Newman, and you look at Clark, all those campuses are under 500 kids, pretty much. And they're all under their projected, or they're under the capacity.
Capacity.
I guess. And so
Right.
all those ideas that we kicked around, perhaps making wings at Newman, busing the kids from Clark, maybe adding a little bit to Amparo, which is really difficult because of just how it's situated. So, yeah, there's some options, but, it's, when we promise something to the voters and then we don't deliver, that is going to affect the future of potential bonds, when we go out in 2-3 years. I'm assuming just,
Right.
we may go out again, and we probably will go out again because there's a lot of upgrades that you're going to have to provide in the next few years. So, we need to really kind of
Study
figure
that
this
one.
out.
So
Sooner
for
than later.
Clark Elementary, it's a combination of looking at enrollment in that area, seeing what other options we have in the existing facilities,
Right.
and even trying to design maybe a
Yes.
smaller campus for them. Looking at all that. And if you buy us time, and probably Sam's going to hit me over the head, in the past, honestly, our bond programs, we've had to come in and kind of, okay, let's do this with our operating. We don't like to do that, but if we had to, let's say we needed 12 million to redo a small Clark Elementary, we would have to find a way. I mean,
Right, and the benefit there at Clark Elementary School, we do have quite a bit of property. There's options to build a school while the school remains
Yes.
in place, and we could build it, within the property. And that would not require like an entire demolition. I know that there was a discussion about repurposing the existing Clark Elementary for educational programs.
Has that money been drawn down already? Those.
we've sold all the bonds, we
Okay.
have the
Right.
cash, like,
Okay.
this is
It's
true cash
sitting
that
there.
we have, yes.
Mr. Rangel, can you get added there a Grizzly to put in my school, or a mountain Grizzly? So, they have plenty of money. I'm just kidding, man,
Let me ask you also, on
Everybody turns their face,
the improvements that Alexander was done,
Sam, you
what
can
monies
count
came
one
out-
down for me.
What monies were used from there?
Well, for the improvements, Alexander, there was a division between two projects. One which had to do with the athletics improvements, that was funded through the general
Right.
fund. It was not bond related. The only projects that were funded, Alexander, was what was in the bond program originally was the fine arts reconstruction and the ag science building. It did turn into be more expensive than what was budgeted originally because of the overall major utility infrastructure improvements that were required. But everything was through bond programs. We did use some of the interest earned at the time, was presented to the Bond Oversight Committee and at that time to the board, and that was funded in that manner. I know that at this time, we wanted to just start a dialogue on, if I may, on the next slide. Administration has been discussing this over the past few months. I know that we're not addressing the Clark Elementary, that's probably
That looks like Salinas.
a separate issue, but campus improvement projects that could be considered with utilizing the funds from the Salinas replacement school, if that was decided by the board that that's not something that would be the direction of the board. We visited through the administration and campuses, and we identified some highest priorities for instructional facilities at United South High School. A new fine arts facility, probably to the tune of about $6 million to include everything that is needed for that campus. Then LBJ High School is in dire need of some agricultural science shop building. I know that LBJ 9th has state-of-the-art ag shop, but then when they move on to the main campus, there's no instructional facility, so that would be about $3 million.
And they're the only campus that doesn't have one, correct?
That is correct, out of our 4 high schools. And then other projects that we identified visiting with the administration, United South High School, Ag Science, they do need some major renovations there on the welding shop, as well as the culinary arts programs being very successful. It's just, we've outgrown those facilities that were built over 30 years ago. So that's another about $2 million for those. But again, these are just ideas for consideration, for dialogue, and see what direction we.
That's what y'all want to do with the $10 million from
It's something that the administration would propose that would be.
For the board to consider before we would take it to the bond oversight committee.
Yeah. I know we've talked about in the Clark area, there's a lot of, building wings. I think that the teacher training center has even been kicked around as Clark. There's a lot of ideas there to use that area, and there's a lot of land there too. So yeah, I think we need to come up with the plan sooner than later to deal with the Clark situation, because the teachers were the more vocal ones when we visited with them. We had some that were pretty adamant. The school is old, and it needs to be upgraded, and they feel left out. They feel like, hey, everybody's getting new campuses, everybody's getting upgrades, and we're still here in this school, and it's a good school.
Correct.
And it's cyclical. All that area is cyclical. We have a lot of retired people that live in that area. We have a lot of leased homes, but it's going to come back eventually. It's centralized, and so it'll come back. But
That's one of the reasons why, Mr. Gonzalez and Ms. Benavides, Sam, Ms. Rendon, and I, we wanted to visit with you all and start this discussion and get some direction, because keep in mind this 2013 bond program, which included these 2 replacements, it was all supposed to be completed by 2018, 2019. It was a 5-6 year program. It had to be put on hold, as you know, back in the 2017, 2018 crunch, financial crunch.
Right.
Everything stopped. It was delayed, but we had no choice at the time. We had to stop all construction, pretty much new construction, and we just proceeded with what already was in progress. Those 2 years of delay, just inflation alone, like Laida mentioned, was 15 to 20%. And then the pandemic came on board, another 20 to 30% cost increase in everything, in materials, and it's not going to stop anytime soon. The sooner we can make a decision, and move forward on Salinas Elementary funds and reallocate those. Again, this is just for discussion. I know we're going to present to the bond oversight, and then we'll come back to the board for some actual action item in November, I believe.
Yeah.
November board meeting.
Working with the attorneys to get, because all these bond funds to be
For
reallocated.
the bond, for the bond money that's in there, right?
That is correct,
Yes.
yes, sir.
Yes.
Because I know that I've been there to United South, and I know it needs a lot of work. That school is very, very old. And I know that past administration also wanted to do a facelift on it. And for whatever reasons, it's been held up from the front. I would like to see that also come up, a facelift in the front. you know, at least bring it up to par
Yes,
with
sir.
the rest of the high school.
That's something we can look at definitely. And also incorporate the dance studio, because when that was built, we didn't have the access controls. Now that we went and added access controls, it's difficult. It's a detached building as well as a science lab
It
building,
has no lockers.
right? So that's something that we have
Lockers, no
to,
restrooms. So they have to cross.
they have to go, and it's difficult now because in order to get in, back into the building, there's no access. So we would consider maybe enclosing that corridor, getting rid of that access controls and redesigning so that that exterior walkway is part of the new corridor, like it's part of the campus. So there's ways to address that, definitely. You know, we need to look at all those options. Like I was telling the campus principal and curriculum instruction, they did have a substantial number of projects that were in the bond program, like the new science labs. We completely refurbished, it was like $5 million. The science lab they have are state-of-the-art, and everything was refurbished. The gymnasiums, and we did a lot of other improvements. But I understand it's a 30-plus-year-old campus, and it needs more work.
Can I just throw a wrench into this whole deal? One thing I want you to look at, and it was one of my original campaign promises that I first ran in 2010. What would be the cost, and I'm being really ambitious here, what would be the cost to relocate the transportation compound on Eden Lane, you know, to another location, maybe Clark, and pave that entire area, even the area between the United Middle sixth grade campus, where you got there used to be like playground equipment there and stuff, that empty lot there.
Right.
And because they're having a lot of parking issues, and, you know, that's one of the projects that I would really be interested in, because we've talking about outgrown, that transportation compound has been outgrown. That was the original one, and it's, you know, there's neighborhoods all over the place, and buses are turning left onto Del Mar Boulevard. I know I saw Mr. Aranda here earlier, but thank God we haven't had any issues, but something like that I think would really be a good thing.
Yeah, we can certainly look at that. We do have the property for that. If you recall, Mr. Montevero, we purchased
sir.
additional land at Aqueros.
Yes.
Right next to the Juan Roberto Ramirez Middle School, there's another 20 acres.
Right.
For future purpose of,
I think that's something that
Transportation.
we need to look at, because that property could be used for additional, either additional parking, additional playground sites, or little fields for the sports teams and the parking, because people are parking all along Eden and into the
Mr. Rangel, I was-
Falcon Bank, so.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was telling Mr. Montemayor that at STEP, they cleared all the back, and they put caliche for, what, about 12 years ago, longer? And they never have any hoses, because caliche doesn't give very much. And I was telling him, you can go all around the back, the side and the back, and they can go through the side door or the back door, and save a lot of money, because pavement is pretty expensive, and then with the heat, it doesn't last very long. And caliche lasts a long time.
we
It was
can
just a
definitely look at
suggestion.
those projects, absolutely.
Well, you've given us a lot to consider, but we are looking at the different options. And obviously, we do want to go to the Bond Oversight Committee if we come with a proposal in November.
Well, since you're here, before I let you go, Mr. Rangel,
Yes, sir.
there was a meeting the other day between a couple of concerned citizens. It was hosted by Constable DeValley. I think Chief Gardner was there. Judge Salinas, Pepe Salinas, myself, and Ms. Oliveros were there. And we were talking about the situation entering and exiting Alexander Ninth Grade and the Roberto J. Santos properties.
Or the Cove
The
subdivision.
coves, it's, the traffic's, that light, Aron Salazar actually did the monitoring of the light. That light is only allowing about 3 or 4 cars to go at a time. So if you envision Del Mar Boulevard up to the loop has about 5 lanes. Past the loop going east, it's only a farm market road, it's about 2 lanes. And so it's not a UISD issue, but they're all UISD kids, and the buses are going through there. And so there's going to be an accident at some point.
I will be, Mr. Montemayor, attending a meeting that's going to be held, I think, next month with TxDOT. They have the funds already allocated for the overpass on Del Mar and the loop, and then also for the overpass I believe, at Jackman
Yeah,
Boulevard.
and so that was discussed, but that's going to take about 2 years. That's
Correct.
going to start sometime next year. And
Right.
it's going to make the situation even worse. And they refuse to redo the lighting patterns. And
That's
so-
right. I mean, we've addressed that with the City of Laredo Traffic Department, with TxDOT, but their concern is that traffic volumes along the loop,
So what I
and they don't
proposed,
want to move those times.
what I proposed to them was a kind of a drop-off and pick-up. Alexander has a property at the very corner of Bulldog Boulevard and Del Mar.
Right.
And Principal Sandoval has indicated you can use it, where parents can drop off their kids there in the mornings, and the buses will pick them up from there and transport them across. Something simple can be done. Maybe you can reduce 40, 50 cars. It's kind of like a park and ride concept, but just
Sure.
drop off and ride kind of situation. That's the only thing I could think of, because I don't know how else you're going to reduce that traffic. But anyway, I just thought I'd throw it out there. Mr. Gonzalez is here, Mr. Rangel is here, and Chief
Sure.
Garner was present at
No,
that
We'll
meeting.
we'll look at that option, if it can help. But there is light at the end of the tunnel.
I don't want to do that, whatever it takes to get it done.
So really, what we wanted from this evening was to get direction, and honestly, what we have is a little bit specific directions for the replacement of Salinas. Obviously, because the building, it's demolished, we're there. And just knowing how inflation is affecting the available funds we had, we felt that these were the projects that we kind of heard, and just, I think our bond counsel, who's present today, had already advised the board that we can move funds if it's for school purposes, but we also would want to make a recommendation through some kind of official resolution saying, we're not going to replace Salinas Elementary, we will do these funds, and we'll do these projects instead, just so that it goes on record. And again, like you said, for future bond programs, we would say, the community was advised, we had a board meeting,
In the bond oversight.
yeah, and then we would go
So
through
it
your
goes for
bond.
November, right?
November board meeting, yes, sir.
Yes.
We'll
Well,
move
first,
to
we
bond
would,
oversight first.
For the oversight.
Okay.
first we would go to the bond oversight committee to discuss that with them, so make a recommendation for the board to consider.
Can we put them both on the bond oversight committee so we can start that dialogue? with the
Absolutely.
bond?
Yes.
Start-
Yes.
Start talking to them about it, because I don't want to wait till next summer.
No, it would be ideal for us to go ahead and get direction on both projects,
Yeah.
to try to address this inflation.
Do the better.
cost.
I can understand the cost, the increase in cost, especially with the freeze and the COVID and all that. I think people will understand that. But there's absolutely no way we're going to be able to build a school with $10 million. It's just, no va a pasar. Not even a smaller school.
Find a way.
But,
Would the direction to staff be for the Clark Elementary replacement? First of all, the number one would be, what would an actual replacement campus look like on the site? A smaller version based on enrollment study? Did you want to see some renovations to the existing? I don't know, that building is really old, Mr.
I think we just need to discuss the issue with the bond oversight
Well,
committee,
a new campus.
and then go with Salinas
Yes,
first,
yeah.
and then buy us some time to come up with the plan to present to the bond oversight committee, because that's really who I'm going to rely on. They eran ellos, no era yo, it was them.
Okay.
That's all it's going to be.
Right.
So,
Yes.
but you know what I mean. It's
Yeah.
going to be really difficult to go to somebody and say, well, we promised you this, but we're going to give you this smaller version, just to, I think they're just as deserving as any other area, and so Sam's from that area too.
We hear that.
Yeah. So we'll present something to the bond oversight. We were thinking of having a meeting
This
on
Monday.
Monday. We do post an agenda, so just in case board members want to attend, and we
welcome.
would show them an informational item, pretty much what you see this evening. They have known where we are on our bond program, right? So I think the next two slides, we kind of gave you all the land, the way the land looked right now at United South High School.
Yeah, possible location of the fine arts on the south part of the campus.
Yes.
That's where currently we have many portable classroom buildings. They would be relocated. That's ideal location because the marching pad is right next to it. It has access to the loop, bus loop. for deliveries and pick up all the students and equipment, trailers and all that. And then, of course, at LBJ, the location of the potentially an ag science building located on the southwest corner next to the athletic field house. There is a property there that's vacant, and it would be ideal where the ag program would have their own entrance and exit through St. Luke Boulevard with a loop, have an area for the animal pens and, what did I do? Press the wrong button. So we have the greenhouse, everything pretty much following the prototypes that we used at Alexandria High School for both the fine arts at United South High School as well as the LBJ Ag Science. But we'll present all of these concepts at the bond oversight and then come back to the board with the recommendations. Thank you.
No, thank you.
All right, I guess we're adjourned.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second. We're adjourned.
Second?